warm welcome. You're watching the Newshour Agenda, India's most loved primetime show at 10. I'm Padmaja Joshi. Today the Prime Minister was in Uttarakhand, and while there he made a major push for revival of centers of Hindu faith. It's a theme that has run through most of his events in the last few months. First, it was Ayodhya, the Bhumi Pujan there. Then it was the Kashi Vishwanath corridor. Then the Mahakal corridor. Today, the Prime Minister visited Kedarnath and Badrinath shrines and sent out a clear message that there is a need to shed a colonial mindset that India has for long been shackled by, and Indians must take pride in their Hindu civilization. Launching a scathing attack on previous governments, the Prime Minister highlighted that centers of spiritual and religious importance were not just neglected, but also there was almost an embarrassment to acknowledge our Hindu culture and civilization. And this neglect, said the PM, was because of a heen bhavna, a feeling of inferiority towards centers of faith. Citing the examples of the Kashi Vishwanath temple, Ujjain, Ayodhya, where major reconstruction work has been carried out in recent years, the PM said that his government has restored these centers back to their glory.
लंबे समय तक हमारे यहां अपने आस्था स्थलों के विकास को लेकर एक नफरत का भाव रहा। विदेशों में वहां की संस्कृति से जुड़े स्थानों की ये लोग तारीफ करते करते नहीं थकते, लेकिन भारत में इस प्रकार के काम को हेय दृष्टि से देखा जाता था। इसकी वजह एक ही थी, अपनी संस्कृति को लेकर ही भावना, अपने आस्था स्थलों पर अविश्वास, अपनी विरासत से विद्वेष। देश की आजादी के 75 साल पूरे होने पर मैंने लाल किले से एक आह्वान किया है। ये आह्वान है गुलामी की मानसिकता से पूरी तरह मुक्ति का। क्या जरूरत पड़ी ये कहने की? ऐसा इसलिए क्योंकि हमारे देश को गुलामी की मानसिकता ने ऐसा जकड़ा हुआ है कि प्रगति का हर कार्य कुछ लोगों को अपराध की तरह लगता है। गुलामी की ऐसी मानसिकता ने हमारे पूजनीय पवित्र आस्था स्थलों को जर्जर स्थिति में ला दिया था। सैकड़ों वर्षों से मौसम की मार सहते आ रहे पत्थर, मंदिर स्थल, पूजा स्थल के जाने के मार्ग, वहां पर पानी की व्यवस्था, उसकी तबाही, सब कुछ तबाह होकर के रख दिया गया था। जिसके प्रति कोटि कोटि लोगों की श्रद्धा हो, हजारों साल से श्रद्धा हो, जीवन का एक सपना हो कि उस धाम में जाकर के मत्था टेक के आएंगे, लेकिन सरकारें ऐसी रही कि अपने ही नागरिकों को वहां तक जाने की सुविधा करने का उनको जरूरी नहीं लगा।
Now, for very long, there has been a debate of temple versus toilet. Remember, that was a famously controversial comment that was made by then Minister Jairam Ramesh. But while in Uttarakhand, the Prime Minister underlined that the two can and should go hand in hand. One should always have pride in their civilization, their history and their culture, but should also keep marching forward towards progress. Which is why, after visiting the shrines in Badrinath and Kedarnath, the Prime Minister also inaugurated connectivity projects worth 3,500 crores in Mana village, one of the last few villages in India in Chamoli district of Uttarakhand. He also laid the foundation stone of 2 ropeway projects and road widening projects worth around 1,000 crores. From Kashi to Mahakal, under the Prime Minister, there has been a renovation of Hindu shrines across the country. Remember, recently in Ujjain, the PM inaugurated the first phase of the 900-meter Mahakal corridor project worth over 800 crores. In December last year, he inaugurated the revamped Kashi Vishwanath Dham, unveiled Adi Shankaracharya's statue at Kedarnath, and inaugurated reconstructed precincts of Old Somnath in Gujarat. A year earlier, he laid the foundation stone of the Ram Mandir in Ayodhya. In a country where for long it has been argued that we must look at the temples of the future, where dams, schools, hospitals is what we must aspire to, can the two go hand in hand? Should the two not go hand in hand? And was there an embarrassment about our culture which led to the neglect, and is that neglect now being undone by the Modi government?
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Joining us on the show, we have Guru Prakash, national spokesperson of the BJP, author Uday Mahurkar, Ashutosh, political analyst, Tehseen Poonawala, Dr. Suman C. Raman, both political analysts. But my first question is to former Member of Parliament and author Pavan Varma. Mr. Varma, I want to start by asking you about a comment that the Prime Minister made today, saying that the lack of attention to our places of worship, to temples, is not because there was negligence. It was because of heen bhavna. And especially talking about past governments. Do you think that's a legitimate accusation?
I think the Prime Minister has a kernel of relevance in what he said, because for some time, soon after 1947, there was a feeling that the definition of secularism would be violated or vitiated if you showed unnecessary respect to your own religion or unnecessary preoccupation for it or excessive preoccupation for it. And there were incidents in the past when, for instance, I think in 1951, when there was to be the renovation of the Somnath temple, which, as you know, was brutally destroyed by Mahmud Ghazni and every time rebuilt and destroyed again. The renovation of Somnath temple, Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru at that time, perhaps for well-intentioned reasons, felt that the President of India, Dr. Rajendra Prasad's attending the renovation would be tantamount to, in some manner, diluting secularism. So let me make it clear, secularism is not about indifference to one's own faith, but respect for all faiths. Secondly, let me make the point briefly that yes, I would slightly disagree with the Prime Minister. There was even to some extent a neglect of many important landmarks of Hindu civilizational legacy. They needed to be restored, they needed to be put right, and I think that process is also in a way justified. My third point is that if that is the case, we must ensure that the Prime Minister of a country should not appear to be indifferent to his faith in any manner. He should be a devout Hindu, but he should occasionally, for purposes of symbolic presence, also be present at activities of other faiths, because we are a multicultural, plural, a diverse society.
Okay, very interesting points made, but your first issue I want to take across with Tehseen Poonawala. Our first Prime Minister was famously quoted as saying that it is dams which are temples of modern India. Tehseen Poonawala. Now the message is dams bhi banenge, Narmada Dam bhi banega, और मंदिर भी बनेंगे.
And at the onset, in advance, a very happy Diwali to such an esteemed panelist, because I don't know if we'll meet all of them for Diwali, so happy Diwali in advance. The first Prime Minister rightly said that the dams are the temples of modern India, because at that time, in 1947, 1948, when India got independence, India was grappling with economic instability. It had a GDP that was negative, and it had the country that had to rebuild the country. But that does not mean that Jawaharlal Nehru was against the idea of Hinduism or Indian culture. I mean, anyone just has to read Discovery of India, as I know that Pavanji has read Discovery of India, and you will understand how Pandit Nehru speaks about Indian culture and about Hinduism. The man, Pandit Nehru, when he died, his ashes were put in the Ganga. So let's understand that he was also a devout Indian who understood Indian culture. Let's come to the issue of Somnath that has repeatedly been, by the BJP, falsely attributed to Pandit Nehru being against the renovation of Somnath and subsequently other issues. Let me just briefly touch upon that. Somnath was renovated by a gentleman called Mr. Gadgil, who happened to be a member of parliament from Pune, who was a PWD minister in the first Nehru government, and somebody, his family and my family being extremely close, and my family played a small role in that. And Pandit Nehru writes to Gadgil, and I'm quoting his letters, he writes to Gadgil, telling Gadgil that the Somnath temple must be magnificent. Yes, there was a disagreement between Pandit Nehru and Sardar Patel on how should the government renovate the temple. Ultimately, it was done by a trust. Who gave the trust the money, and which cabinet, who headed that cabinet? Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, and Mr. Gadgil was in charge of renovating the temple, the first PWD minister of India. Incidentally, Mr. Gadgil is also the gentleman who identified Godse and Aastha as murderers of Bapu. So to say that India in 1955 was grappling with how secularism should turn out is completely different from what happens today. Yes, Pandit Nehru had differences with Rajendra Prasad on should a president of a sovereign attend or no, but he didn't prevent the president. The president did go in his personal capacity, and that continued. So let's understand we were a grappling nation. Okay. That comparison in 2022 is unfair. Point number two. It is not that only Prime Minister Modi today has come up with this entire renaissance of religious tourism. It is great it is happening. It must happen because India must sell its culture and its religious tourism. But Pavan Varma ji is from Bihar. Did the Bihar government and the UPA government not work on various sites in Bihar? I know that they did. I know that in Gujarat it's happened. I know that it's happened in various other states, and not just on Buddhist or Muslim temples or mosques, but also on Hindu temples. Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, Karnataka, I can provide you a list. And these have been UPA government, these have been erstwhile NDA government. Yes, there is more marketing of Mr. Modi, I agree. But it's happened before and will continue to happen.
So since you mentioned Bihar and Gujarat both, I think it's important we go across to Guru Prakash and Udayji both. Right now you've got a muscular assertion, Guru Prakash, of religious renaissance. Panditji also did it, Nehruji also did it, subsequent prime ministers also did it, but as Tehseen Poonawala says, marketing wasn't done.
No, Padmaja, I think it's a matter of perception, and Tehseen Poonawala ji is entitled to his own views. But one thing which we need to understand, and I partly agree with Pavan ji, who is a very accomplished author, we have all read his work, that he referred to our culture as a civilization. We are not just a nation, but we are a civilization. We have our rich cultural and civilizational roots, and we need a deep project on decolonizing the Indian mind. We need a very strong academic infrastructure to deal with decolonizing the Indian mind. Unfortunately, decades after independence, the rulers, the ruling establishment, they were colonized. They were not taking pride in doing all of this. In the last 8 years, what we have seen, be it the Char Dham infrastructure Yojana, the Kedarnath Yojana, the Badrinath Yojana, the Mahakal Yojana, the Kashi Vishwanath Yojana, which was a logistical marvel in itself, which was a textbook example of how urban administration can be done. No one could have imagined. If you go to Kashi today, if you go to Kashi Vishwanath, you would realize that how properties all around the temple parisar was acquired without any legal hassle. So what is the problem in that? The problem is when a Congress president in 2019 says कि इस देश में सनातन का भय हो जाएगा, सनातन का शासन हो जाएगा, that is where the problem lies, Padmaja. सनातन के नाम पे आप डर पैदा करना चाहते हैं? When it was Mahatma Gandhi who proudly said कि मैं सनातनी हिंदू हूं, ये महात्मा गांधी जी को तो पढ़ के आओ आप कम से कम. When Ram Manohar Lohia, in one of his very fundamental essays, Ram, Krishna and Shiv, he says that इस देश के हृदय में राम बसते हैं और आज लोहिया के जो चेले हैं वो सेकुलरिज्म पे ज्ञान देते हैं. The point is this, that even if you go back to history, I still remember a member of Constituent Assembly, Tajmul Hasan, he said that there is no point in using the word minority. Then the entire politics of minority appeasement in this country is problematic. When in 2007 the then Prime Minister Manmohan Singh says इस देश के संसाधनों पे पहला हक मुसलमानों का है, that is where the problem arises.
So Ashutosh ji, this is not about renovating temples or being seen prominently with chandan on your forehead. It is about saying proudly that I am proud of my religion and I am proud of my heritage, and the lack of doing that is being argued is a sign of colonial shackles. Ashutosh ji. And that is what our past government suffered from. Colonial shackles.
Padmaja, to call our great leaders like Mahatma Gandhi, Sardar Patel, Jawaharlal Nehru, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, that their mind was colonized and now the mind has been decolonized, I think it's a distortion of history and it's belittling our great leaders. Somebody who fought against the British colonization, who fought with all the vigor and the energy they had, to demonize them like this, I think that's not in the right spirit. Point number one. Point number two, secularism in this country does not mean discrimination between faith. To create hate speech against a particular religion. And I can understand the Prime Minister of the country, the BJP has great faith in Hinduism. And we all are proud of being a Hindu, though I do not practice any religion. But the fact of the matter is, where it is written in Ved, in Upanishad, in Shankaracharya's philosophy, in Ramanuja's philosophy, in Vallabha's philosophy, in Chaitanya philosophy, in Kabir philosophy, that a particular religion should be demonized and the hate mongering should be done against them.
But sir,
what is happening today is that
to go to Kedarnath, Badrinath or to do Mahakal Lok, how is that demonizing any religion? That is just to say that your places of worship should be given the due respect.
Padmaja,
by making temples, you're not saying that Baki kharab hai.
No Hindu will ever question that why a particular temple has been renovated or made grand. But is it permissible to create hate mongering in the country in the name of religion? Is it permissible? Is it permissible that a few people feel very happy when Bilkis Bano's the rapists are freed? And the Home Ministry of the country concurs with the Gujarat government's
Sir, with the greatest of respect, how are we conflating the two issues? One is a law and order issue and must be addressed and must be condemned. But to say कि temples बनने से नफरत फैलाई जा रही है, कैसे? Temples का अगर जीर्णोद्धार हो रहा है, तो उससे नफरत कैसे फैल रही है?
पद्मजा जी, आप मेरी बातों को थोड़ा ट्विस्ट कर रही हैं. I'm sorry to say this. मैंने ये नहीं कहा कि आप टेम्पल्स का जीर्णोद्धार नहीं, मैंने ये कहा कि दोनों चीजें एक साथ होनी चाहिए. मंदिर का निर्माण भी करिए, लेकिन किसी दूसरे धर्म के खिलाफ नफरत की बात मत करिए. जो लोग नफरत की बात कर रहे हैं उनके खिलाफ कड़ी कार्रवाई होनी चाहिए, उसमें किसी तरीके का डिस्क्रिमिनेशन नहीं होना चाहिए. अगर ये परसेप्शन फैलता है कि सत्ता के ऊंचे प्रतिष्ठानों पर बैठे हुए लोग नफरत फैलते हुए देखना चाहते हैं क्योंकि उनको खास तरीके से हिंदुओं का वोट चाहिए, तो उसमें मुझे आपत्ति है और यह कहने का मेरा अधिकार है. महात्मा गांधी was a devout Hindu, but he was not communal. That's the line we have to draw.
Okay, Guru Prakash, respond to that and then I'll come to you, Udayji. Guru Prakash, demonizing one while glorifying the other.
No, at the outset, let me make this clarification that what Ashutosh ji was trying to do to attribute some of the statements I did not make. I did not say that our senior leadership was colonized, but the ruling establishment decades our independence, they were colonized, and there is no doubt about that. Point number 2, about demonization. If 40% more Muslim girls are going to schools, if this is demonization, what is the definition of education? If Pasmanda Muslims are getting their due, if for the first time in the history of Uttar Pradesh, a Pasmanda Muslim Danish Ansari is going to be a part of the cabinet, if this is demonization, then what is representation? The third point, sir, if abolition of triple talaq, if abrogation of Article 370 is bringing welfare to the Muslim community, then what is the definition of demonization? This is just falsifying the narrative. This is something which we need to be careful of. And Ashutosh ji, being a senior journalist, I don't think that you can do this.
Ashutosh ji, quick response, please. I really must bring in Uday ji. Yes.
My dear friend has not spoken about the remuneration of life imprisonment for those who brutalized a woman called Bilkis Bano, and the Home Ministry in all its hurry has given has concurred in 15 days when all the rules were flouted for that. I wish he could speak on that, and he should condemn those who offered them sweets and the garland. He should also speak about how come the Home Ministry concurs with the judgment of the Gujarat government.
Okay, Uday ji, respond to this. Even Pavan Varma ji raised this concern that it's great कि आप कहें कि you throw away the shackles of colonialism, be proud of your heritage, but similarly it should be done for all religions.
Padmaja, let me tell you one thing. Prime Minister Modi has been sending chadar to Ajmer Sharif every year for the last 8 years. He has attended many Sufi sammelans. In Gujarat also, he attended Sufi sammelans in 2010, 2011. So there are many things to, but let us stick to the main narrative. I entirely agree with the Prime Minister, and it should be, his statement today should be seen as correction of a historical wrong. How? Let us go deeper into history. I think we are limiting it to just 947. You see, thousands of temples were demolished during the Muslim period. Leave aside Akbar, I think Jahangir, to some extent Shah Jahan. This temple destruction has continued almost throughout till the Marathas came to hold the reins in Delhi. Now, again, after that, India was partitioned at the behest of a section of Muslims. In 1945-46, Central Assembly election, which was the last parliamentary election before independence, total voting was less of Muslims, but 87% of the Muslims who voted, they voted for Muslim League. 87%. So out of I think the voting was 20%, very less, But even if you don't apply it on 100%, then it is very clear that majority of the Muslims wanted Pakistan, correct? Now after that, you see, you have a Places of Worship Act, against temple destruction which went on for centuries together. Was it not the duty of the Congress to ensure that at least Somnath came, of course, Ayodhya, Kashi and Mathura comes back to the Hindus? So this was a result of a Hindu-Muslim unity model followed by Congress, which I call today also, after, there is, you see, religious reconciliation can happen only if there is self-introspection.
Okay, everyone wants to respond to you, Rajiv. Tehsil Poonawala first. Righting historical wrongs, which is when reconciliation will happen. Yes, Tehsil Poonawala and then Mr. Varma. Yes.
Righting historical wrongs is a fundamental duty. So, sir, if I may please put my point across. I think we're both speaking over each other. If Uday sir finishes, I'll speak.
Go on, please.
Yeah. Uday sir, righting historical wrongs is a fundamental duty of the government, of the citizens of India. But righting historical wrongs should not become, and with due respect to you, water history. Let's come to each of the facts that you raised with respect to you. Number one, the POW Act 1991 that you said. Today, for the last 8 years, you have perhaps the most powerful Prime Minister in the universe, Shri Narendra Modi ji, with Amrit Shah ji. Why don't they just throw the act out of Parliament? It is a 1-second job. They have a majority vote in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. Forget that. Even in the Honorable Supreme Court, Tushar Mehta ji says orally that the act, what he agrees or disagrees. Sir, may I, please? Sir, please, may I? Please, sir. With respect, sir, please. Even in Parliament, the union government has not put an affidavit. This is what I call running with the hare, hunting with the hound. Let's come to the second thing, and Pavan ji and Ashutosh ji will bear with me. Muslims may have demolished, or Mughals may have demolished temples. I don't deny that. Similarly, there have been several stories of Buddhist monasteries being demolished, Jain temples being demolished. It is upon the government today to decide how far back in history we want to go, 13th century, 12th century, 8th century, 7th century, or perhaps BCE. I leave that to the sovereign of the day to decide. But Uday ji, when you say that this is a peculiar model of secularism, may I please ask you that this peculiar model of secularism encourages hate against one community? To be a good Hindu is to be like Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi was the greatest living Hindu. Mahatma Gandhi did not espouse hate. Mahatma Gandhi took everybody along. In this particular government, and I say this with responsibility, hate is encouraged. Day in and day out, demonization of a community is encouraged. It's encouraged from the top of the
But
government.
aren't these two separate issues?
No, they are.
Hate speech is being made and cultural renaissance is being carried out, Suman Raman. Two separate issues, and to conflate the two would be a disservice. Dr. Suman Raman.
Yeah, Padmaja, I've been very patiently listening to everyone. Give me a minute. See, fundamentally, we have to understand that a country will have to live in its present and not necessarily in the past. So while we should be proud of our culture, of our heritage, and I congratulate the Prime Minister for, renovating all these shrines, but to be seen to be renovating shrines exclusively of one faith in a secular country does not send the right message. That's point number one. Point number two, I want to ask these self-styled protectors of Hinduism, how has Hinduism survived over the centuries? Hinduism has survived in India over the centuries. It has survived brutality by various conquerors over the centuries, and it has survived. So this whole argument that we need to put down people of other faiths to sustain Hinduism and we are the protectors of Hinduism simply does not stand to reason. The most important point here is that for India as a nation, had the Prime Minister renovated a few major Christian sites, a few major Muslim heritage sites or worship sites, most certainly then it would have, this entire process would have been welcomed in a wholehearted manner by people of all faiths. This entire question is coming simply because the Prime Minister is single-mindedly focusing on the shrines. I have no problem with him focusing and renovating these shrines. They should have been done long back. But let's face it, his predecessors did do, none of them were, by the way, ashamed to visit temples. Pandit Nehru, I mean, there are so many photographs of Pandit Nehru. Indira Gandhi, the Congress party symbol is believed to come from the Hemambika temple in Palakkad. So I think that we have to understand that to say that everybody else was ashamed of visiting temples and they were hesitant and all that has changed, I don't think that is factual. The Gorakhnath temple in Bangalore, that was renovated by Rajiv Gandhi in 1991, in fact a few months before he was assassinated. Okay. So I think that these are, obviously the PR machine is in overdrive and I have no problem with that. My simple point is all faiths must be made to feel part of this project. And that is not happening. PR machine is in overdrive, although it could be completely wrong. Could be completely wrong. But locals in Banaras, in Ujjain, have borne testimony to the fact that there was a sense of, these temples were not treated the way that they should have been in the past. That's what locals say, but we could be completely wrong. Mr. Varma. Yes.
Some quick points, Padmaja. First of all, on the point that the Prime Minister identified of a sense of heenta, I think it is a very important project of post-colonial societies. You achieve political freedom, but the success of the colonizer is in colonizing your mind, and that takes decades to go. We are having this program in English. Perhaps one example is that on a lighter note. But I believe it's important. I have a book called The Great Hindu Civilization and another book called Becoming Indian, The Unfinished Revolution of Culture and Identity. So I think that is important. But apart from renovating temples, I want to know who is defining what is decolonization. If there are self-appointed Thekadars of Hinduism who say that a woman, as per our heritage, which we need to revive, needs to be dressed like a chaste Hindu Nari. And we will go against any woman in a Western dress or less than acceptable dress to their patriarchal notions. Is this decolonization? Okay, Guru Prakash, the more specific allegation against your party is Hinduism has survived marauders, it has survived invaders, it has survived Mughals, it does not need the BJP to survive.
They want Mr. Modi to wear that Muslim cap.
Okay. Why? We will ask Ashutosh and Tehseen Poonawalla if they want that, but Guru Prakash respond to this.
He should wear that Muslim cap. That is their brand of secularism.
Okay, Ashutosh wants to respond. Just a second, Ashutosh. Okay, your response. Ashutosh ji, your response.
Padmaja, I think Udayji is trying to redefine secularism by the call of genocides against Hindus, against Muslims. That's the kind. See, let me take it to the historical facts. I think for one. No, I think that is unfair to say that he's asking for genocide of Muslims is a very serious and a very unfair thing to say. Open calls are given and no actions are taken against such people, and when Supreme Court intervenes, only then the actions are taken. So let me come to the other point.
Join debate with Atulji. He is so one-sided. There is no point in debating with him.
Udayji, please let me speak. I have a right to speak.
We are talking about temples. He has brought in Bilkis Banu.
I can also,
what to say? There should be debate on Bilkis Banu. We will debate it.
Let me
why you are bringing Bilkis Banu here? We can have a separate debate on Bilkis Banu. Why not?
Let me complete, Mr. Udayji.
Your whole focus
Muslim
is on how to show a set of people as anti-Muslim, as...
Will you let me speak? Will you let me speak?
Okay, please finish.
I think when he was talking about 80% Muslims voting for the Muslim League, he has forgotten for a Jinnah there was Allah Rakha Khan. When the Pakistan resolution was passed in 1940, it is Allah Rakha Khan who organized the biggest ever Muslims rally against the partition and against Jinnah. Point number 2, Muslim League was in Shama Prasad Mukherjee, Hindu Mahasabha, they formed government with the Muslim League after the Pakistan declaration. When he was talking about the demolition of temples,
that explanation
of temples
has been given several times.
In Gujarat, when the road was brought in, how many temples were demolished? Everybody knows that. Let me come. Sringeri Math. Tipu Sultan had renovated Sringeri Math when he was there, because who were those people who were demolishing them?
Guru Prakash, respond. Respond to the original question. Hinduism doesn't need BJP to survive.
It is your forte.
It has survived everything that Ashutosh just mentioned.
Distortion of history is your forte. Bringing Bilkis Banu in this debate.
Why are you so upset?
Distortion of debate.
Why are you so upset?
We are debating on a particular issue. You are bringing Gujarat. You are bringing Bilkis Banu. There are many things about Gujarat you are not speaking.
Okay. Okay, let's please steer this back to the original point of debate. Since we are talking about revival, renaissance and the politics behind it. BJP is not the sole proprietor of Hinduism, Hindutva or its survival or glorification. Guru Prakash.
110%, Padmaja, that I agree with you. It's the responsibility of entire country. But the problem is when this trivialization of debate happens. This trivialization of debate is happening when you're talking about lumpen cadres, you're talking about PR machinery. We should be talking about 40 World Heritage Sites. 40 World Heritage Sites. And 10 after 2014. We should be talking about a temple being built in UAE. We should be talking about a temple being built in Bahrain. We should be talking about a temple being built in Panama. This is our soft power. This is our soft power. This is what we don't understand. When we should be talking about a rich culture and civilizational heritage, after 2014, we saw a monument in the name of Raja Suhel Dev, a Dalit saint. We saw a monument in the name of Sant Tukaram, a backward class saint. This was not happening before. This is important for our unity, for our culture and our civilization. It is misleading when you say things like things are not being done for Muslims, points on secularism. This is just misleading and trivializing the entire culture and civilization.
Mr. Prakash and Mr. Verma, yes.
I would also like
quick rebuttal, please. Quick rebuttal, then Dr. Suman Raman. Yes.
Please, I would like
Padmaja, our calling card on soft power is really the fact that we are an inclusive and tolerant society. And I don't believe that, according to my friend Guru Prakash ji, that if we continue to build temples only abroad, it is an indication of our soft power. It does not mean to neglect Hindus. And let's put facts straight. There was widespread destruction of Hindu monuments and artifacts and centers of learning during Muslim rule. It's Muslim invasion. Don't distort history and try to gloss over facts, because that leads to a backlash.
No, that is a very important point by Pavan Verma ji, and I have a great amount of respect for him. But we also need to understand, sir, that when we are supplying vaccines to more than 120 countries, is that not our soft power? When more than 10 countries have given the Bharat Ratna like awards, topmost civilian honor to the Honorable Prime Minister, is this not our soft power, sir? When International Yoga Day is accepted globally, is it not our soft power, sir? We have to understand that this is the source of our soft power, our culture, our civilization, our inclusive policies. We have, for the first time in our history of our country, an Adivasi woman at the highest constitutional office. Is that not a soft power, sir? For the first time in our history, we have such a powerful Prime Minister for an OBC community. Is it not a soft power of our country? We have to understand. Let's just keep our prejudices and our biases away and then look at it from the issue perspective.
So, Dr. Suman Raman, look at the bigger picture and the statement being made by India worldwide.
Padmaja.
Yes, Dr. Raman.
Padmaja, No, Udayji made two quick points. He said that I think it was him who said that, you know, they are trying to make Mr. Modi wear a Muslim cap. As the Prime Minister of the country, several past Prime Ministers have worn the Muslim caps. They've worshipped at churches, they've gone to temples, and they've gone to masjids. And I don't think any of them, changed their religion or became any less Hindu because they did all these things. Millions of people across the country do all of that. I go to churches, I go to dargahs, I go to temples. It does not mean that that is making me less Hindu because I went to another place of worship. Why are we in this mindset? Why does he say they are trying to make Mr. Modi wear a Muslim?
Let's stick to the main issue. But Mr. Mahurkar answered this. Today the specific question asked is, great, आपने महाकाल corridor बनाया, आपने वाराणसी में corridor बनाया, you have done what you did for temples across the country. Why not the same gesture for places of worship of Christians, of Jains, of Muslims, of Sikhs? Why not extend the same courtesy to everyone? India is a secular country and everyone respects their places of worship.
It is being done. It is. If you look at the cultural ministry's work, that is also being done. Who says it is not being done? Tell me one thing, what Prime Minister has done in Mahakaleshwar. Now see the history of Mahakaleshwar. The temple was demolished by Iltutmish in 1234. Then for 500 years, Hindu used to build it and it used to get demolished again. Now, in 1734, Ranuj Scindia and his Diwan Ramchandra Baba Suktankar, they did the Jinodhar of Mahakaleshwar and all the other temples which were in a most neglected state over a period of 4 or 5 centuries. Now, Modi has done it in a span of just 1 year or 2 years. Why Congress could not do it? Let them answer.
Why could Congress not do it?
Could not do Kashi corridor.
Okay, why could Congress not do it?
The problem with Udayji is that he's very selective with facts. He has forgotten that in history, when Sringeri Mutt was demolished,
then who are you?
Shankaracharya ran away from there.
Are you non-selective?
And he wrote 36 letters to whom? Tipu Sultan.
Are you non-selective?
And Tipu Sultan. And Tipu Sultan.
You are calling me selective. Are you non-selective?
Again is disturbing me.
Tipu Sultan was a temple breaker for the first 10 years of his life. He became secular only when the Marathas and the British really...
Okay, one by one, please, Mr. Mahurkar, one by one. Yes, Ashutosh, finish.
He has demolished hundreds of temples in Malabar.
I want to know, does he know?
It is on record. Go to ask any Malayali in Kerala. He'll tell you.
Please, let's bring order back. Let Mr. Ashutosh finish, sir, then I'll come back to you.
So I'm saying, but they will paint a different picture of Tipu Sultan. Tipu Sultan, who renovated with every resources available, and Shankaracharya, he had given asylum to Shankaracharya. 36 letters are there in records. So the fact is, yes, Tipu Sultan also demolished temples, but Tipu Sultan also renovated temples.
Sir, we were talking about the politics. The question asked of you was, why could the Congress not do what has been done in the last 8 years? That was it. We're not talking about Tipu Sultan over here.
So when Somnath temple was built, and who were the leaders?
Okay, Tehseen Poonawala also wants to come in. Tehseen Poonawala.
Rajendra Prasad did not belong to RSS. Sardar Patel did not belong to RSS. Mahatma Gandhi did not belong to RSS.
But when Rajendra Babu was going to Somnath, Nehruji didn't like it.
So who are they? Do they belong to RSS? Do they belong to Hindu Mahasabha? They were Congress leaders. And it was built during the Congress.
Okay.
But BJP want to demonize Jawaharlal Nehru.
Okay, Tehseen Poonawala, and then I really must bring in Mr. Varma as well. Tehseen Poonawala.
Thank you, Padmaja, for finally coming to me. But just 2 or 3 very important historical facts. The temple that Udayji mentioned about in the UAE, beautiful temple inaugurated by the Honorable current Prime Minister of India. But I quote Times of India, the land was given during Manmohan Singh Ji's time, and Manmohan Singh Ji was in the UAE. The land for the temple was allotted when Manmohan Singh Ji was Prime Minister. Is Manmohan Singh Ji and UPA also anti-Hindu? Let's come to let's not get into that. Everything that's done in this country happened after 2014, after Shri Narendra Modi was Prime Minister. Udayji said, I, as an Indian, may want Prime Minister Modi, my Prime Minister, to wear a
Muslim skull cap or a Muslim topi. No. I just want my Prime Minister कि आप किसी को टोपी मत पहनाओ. आप टोपी पहनो ना पहनो ये आपकी मर्जी. मेरी बात समाप्त होने दो. मैं बहुत समय के बाद आया हूँ. प्लीज मेरी बात समाप्त होने दो. Look, the fact of the matter is Indian Renaissance will happen culturally. It should happen. It will continue to happen. And congratulations for that. But Indian Renaissance is not merely the Renaissance of, say, temples being built or mosques being built or churches being renovated. Indian Renaissance will happen when we as Indians will become the most powerful nation in the world where every Indian lives with dignity. Dignity is not when the government of India encourages lumpen elements to create...
But sir, with due respect, the two are not mutually exclusive. It's not as if somebody is saying, I cease to give you PDS and I'm going to only keep building temples.
I'll give you 40, just allow me 40 seconds and I'll give you the answer to that. And the gentleman that Udayji keeps quoting, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, who the BJP is generally accord as one of the most devout Hindus, which he was. Let me quote from a letter Rajendra Prasadji writes on 12th December 1948, point number 5 to Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. And in this letter, and I quote Rajendra Babu, he writes, the RSS is a fascist, violent organization practicing secret methods to transform India.
Okay.
This is what Rajendra Prasad thought about these people.
All right.
They did not...
Final closing comment to Guru Prakash, since you have again stirred a hornet's nest by quoting Dr. Rajendra Prasad on RSS. Final closing words. Guru Prakash.
Padmaja, the closing words is a very brief one. Just for your viewers, was it possible 10 years ago to have a panel debate like this on temple, culture and civilization of India? No. अगर आज ये माहौल बना है, ये वातावरण बना है कि तहसीन पूनावाला और आशुतोष जी भी मंदिरों के ऊपर बात कर रहे हैं, मुझे लगता है कि ये हमारी संस्कृति की जीत है. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद.
All right, let's end it on that amicable note. That being said, I think the best judges will be people of the country about whether this is purely a political move or a larger civilizational message is being sent. Thank you very much, all gentlemen, for joining me. Have a great Diwali.